For my topic, I wanted to talk about the behavioral norms and expectations during the coronavirus pandemic and the way in which they have changed. Obviously, things have changed because society is faced with a threat and must adapt. Society was faced with the threat of a highly contagious and deadly virus, and in doing so, new social practices and social norms emerged as a necessity for survival. Due to the nature of the virus and the way in which it spreads, many of our typical cultural behaviors had to change, and change fast. The first things to collapse were our typical greetings. Greetings, which would be acceptable under any other circumstances, are now classified as unacceptable. Things such as handshakes, hugs, and basically physical contact of any sort with strangers has been put on hold. On top of that, typical social expectations such as going to work, maintaining a clean appearance, and courteous gestures such as holding a door for strangers are no longer expected, and sometimes they're even considered rude. With the collapse of typical behaviors, new behaviors have emerged that help promote the idea of social distancing. They've emerged slowly and progressively as the coronavirus situation has worsened in our state. At first, concerned individuals began to wear masks. Then the government closed non-essential businesses. After that, state and local ordinances were put into place closing parks and meeting locations. And then now we kind of have the media and governments enacting policies that require individuals to remain 6 feet apart and wear masks into retail locations. On top of that, they are suggesting that we do not travel if it is not necessary, and even visiting family has been kind of put on hold until further notice. My personal experience with the coronavirus: as an individual who traveled for spring break to Cancun, I was not welcomed back with open arms upon my return. My family really didn't want to pick me up from the airport, so I had one of my college housemates pick me up, as they didn't want me exposing them to anything I may have picked up during my travels. To this day, even months after my vacation, my grandparents have not allowed any visitors to their house. That includes me, other family, my mom, aunts, uncles. They've been really concerned, especially since they're on the older side and they're in the at-risk group, so they have been doing nothing but self-isolating with each other. The weight of sanctions. So another thing that I experienced throughout this pandemic was the weight of informal sanctions. Before masks were required by law in retail locations, I had an interesting experience in which I felt unwelcome in a local ShopRite. I was one of the only members not to wear a face mask into the store, and never before have I received such dirty looks and foul stares from strangers. The informal sanctions to comply with medical experts' advice and wear a mask were very strong even before it was made into law. Now, linking this to the ideas presented in class, I wanted to kind of solve how did these new behaviors come to exist. One of the first ways I think we began to learn these new behaviors were learning from others or instructed. Scientists were putting out articles and advice, and on top of that, we were sort of watching how other countries responded to the coronavirus before we were hit at home here. Once coronavirus was here, however, we kind of, through interaction, we produced new behaviors. For example, we were not required to wear masks at first, but as more and more people started to wear masks, others mimicked those wearing masks by wearing weird objects on their face or covering up in any way possible. And you could see that in a couple of memes where individuals have been caught wearing silly things outside in public to cover up for the coronavirus. Another way is the media plays a big role during the pandemic. I think it's probably the number one source of information for a lot of individuals out there. And on top of all that, these new behaviors are now being given incentives or sanctions, I guess, to follow them. There's ordinances that have been put in place that include fines, and I've even read about some people receiving jail time and being arrested for violating social distancing guidelines to the extreme. And then when I had to pick a cultural theorist, I selected that Max Weber, and using culture as a logic guiding behavior seemed to best explain the way in which we react during times like these. Culture shapes what people want and how they imagine they can get it. And I guess in this case, culture shapes what people do not want and how they imagine they can avoid getting it. So individuals are staying home, they're covering up, they're keeping their distance in public, they're going out less and less. And that is because Max Weber's idea of culture as a logic guiding behavior is highly rational, and it's a calculated account of human behavior, which is what many individuals are doing. They're evaluating the risk that they have or that they see this virus as, and they are changing their behavior accordingly. And you can see some people don't really care. They don't believe that coronavirus is such a big deal. And those are the guys protesting out in public with no masks or anything. And then you have the people who are self-isolating and actually taking this seriously.